New Hampshire isn't trying to grow fast, and that's exactly why it will thrive over the next 10 years. Curious? Well, I've been in real estate for 23 years, and today I'm breaking down 5 real reasons New Hampshire is set up for long-term success over the next decade. And if you're thinking about moving here or buying long-term, this will tell you whether New Hampshire actually fits your future. New Hampshire sits in the path of forced New England migration. When your choices are overpriced, landlocked, or too niche, you don't pick the trendy option, you pick the one that still works. Between 2020 and 2024, New Hampshire and Maine saw the biggest population gains in New England. Nearly half of New Hampshire's new residents came from Massachusetts. Not because we're trendy, because Massachusetts stopped working for them. Almost 80% of New Hampshire's population growth comes from people moving from other states. These aren't people following some lifestyle blog. These are families who did the math and realized Boston prices outran their paychecks. So what's changed? Honestly, the answer isn't all that impressive. Remote work happened. Hybrid schedules became normal. Distance became less of a deal. Commuters wanted space without giving up New England jobs. They want to stay plugged into Boston's economy without paying Boston's premium. Southern New Hampshire gave them that out. And here's something that'll surprise you. Later on, I'll show you the type of money following these people in. It's completely different from the typical boom markets, and it explains why New Hampshire doesn't crash when other places do. Stick around. Now here's what most people miss about this. This isn't a lifestyle migration, it's pressure relief. People move to New Hampshire after their options have stopped working. Between 2023 and 2024 alone, migration added 9,200 people to New Hampshire. That's a net gain. That's steady demand. The median home in Greater Boston hit $830,000, but down here in New Hampshire, the median price hit $500,000, $330 less than Greater Boston. That's not a small gap. That's the difference between buying a home or renting forever. Forced migration's way more reliable than trendy migration. You can count on it because it's driven by economics, not by excitement. But where these people actually land tells you everything about which parts of the state are really winning. Now, if you're considering a move to New Hampshire and want to know which specific towns match these 5 forces we're covering, I work with relocating families and buyers every single day across the Lakes region, mountains, and seacoast of New Hampshire. My contact information is in the description below. All right, now let's get back to it. Southern New Hampshire is becoming the real economic engine. The whole state isn't growing equally. That's not how this works. Growth lands where the jobs and infrastructure already exist. Southern New Hampshire is becoming the real economic engine, not because of one big announcement, but because the pieces are already in place and businesses know it. Pease Tradeport in Portsmouth, 3,000 acres, 250 companies, and over 10,000 employees. This is up and running. Aerospace, life sciences, logistics. A major expansion is happening right now. Or look at Tuscan Village off 93 in Salem, New Hampshire. 170 acres of mixed-use development on the old Rockingham Park site. Retail, homes, offices, all walkable. They're creating a downtown experience where one didn't exist before. And here's what most people don't know yet. Portsmouth is getting its own version. The Foxfront Mall is being knocked down any day now. Same concept, same mixed-use setup. These aren't random projects. They're a playbook that's being rolled out across the southern tier. Southern New Hampshire towns quietly getting into something Massachusetts can't offer. You're close to Boston without the Boston mess. Jobs spillover happen. Business relocation happens. Employees opt out of Massachusetts taxes and traffic. No more commutes to Boston. You're looking at business parks, healthcare systems, shopping hubs already built out. Infrastructure that works, not stuff on PowerPoint slides. This compounds demand. One of the things that happens when businesses move in is they bring people. These people need houses. They need schools. They need stores and restaurants. This creates more jobs, more housing demand. The whole thing feeds on itself. Nothing flashy, but it works. And that's all that matters to most people. Southern New Hampshire isn't sitting around waiting for growth, it's soaking it up. But all that demand crashes into something most people don't expect. Supply will stay tight. Here's the protection most homeowners don't realize they have. New Hampshire physically can't flood the market with inventory. Supply is going to stay tight. New Hampshire isn't suddenly going to build its way out of this shortage. Between land issues, zoning fights, and local pushback, new construction stays pretty limited. Let me give you the numbers. As of January 2026, New Hampshire has just 2 months of housing inventory. A well-balanced market needs 5 to 7 months. We're nowhere close. The national average right now is 4.3 months. We're less than half of that. And here's what people don't get. That 2 months of inventory, that's barely up from the 1.9 months we had in 2024. The inventory problem isn't getting fixed. It's staying locked in place. So why can't we just build our way out? Geography for one. A lot of New Hampshire's mountains and forests are not good for putting up neighborhoods. Zoning's another. Local control runs deep here. Towns have tight rules, and people push back on new development. Recent efforts to loosen things up have been slow, really slow. Labor costs, material costs, like everywhere else, building got expensive. That kills a lot of projects before they start. But here's what that actually means for you. Markets that can't overbuild don't usually crash. Inventory doesn't spike when things slow down. Owners don't get undercut overnight. This keeps you from getting hammered in a correction. But here's what really locks it in. New Hampshire never chases capital. It comes to us. And I'll explain how that works in a minute. Stay with me. Now, yes, this shortage creates problems for people trying to afford their first home. Absolutely. But if you're already in the market or you're buying to hold for 10 years, this supply crunch means your value is more likely to climb steadily than bounce around like crazy. The housing shortage protects long-term owners, and the people actually buying here make that protection even stronger. Buyers who come to New Hampshire tend to stay long-term. Most boom markets attract flippers, speculators, people chasing quick gains. New Hampshire attracts the exact opposite, and that's why it doesn't collapse. New Hampshire gets people who want stability, safety, good schools and space, a life they can predict. We don't get that many impulse buyers. When people buy here, they're not flipping in 2 years. They're raising kids, they're building careers, they're planning for the long haul. Between 2019 and 2023, about 77% of people who moved to New Hampshire were under 45. Younger families, professionals, people with decades ahead of them. That creates long ownership runs. Fewer people are panic selling. People don't just move to New Hampshire, they move around within it. They buy a starter place in Rochester or Dover. 5 years later, they step up to Exeter or Portsmouth. 10 years later, they downsize to a condo on the seacoast or grab a lake house in Meredith. The internal market stays busy because people stay put, and keeping people matters more than pulling in huge numbers. A state that adds 10,000 people but loses 8,000 is shakier than a state that adds 5,000 and keeps them all. New Hampshire's the second one. Long-term owners handle downturns better. They don't freak out and dump their home at the first bad headline. That keeps prices steady. That protects your neighborhood. This retention creates a foundation that holds even when the markets wobble. And the money backing these buyers, that's where it gets really interesting. The state attracts capital without chasing it. New Hampshire doesn't hand out checks to corporations, doesn't offer flashy incentives, doesn't chase headlines with mega projects. The money shows up anyway, and it's the kind that sticks. New Hampshire pulls in quiet money, small business owners, mid-sized companies, professionals who care about tax efficiency and keeping control. People who want predictability, not wild swings. The reason? No state income tax, no sales tax, and for earners, that's huge. If you're making $200,000 a year in Massachusetts, you're paying 5% state income tax. That's $10,000 a year. Moving to New Hampshire, that turns into a big round zero. Over 10 years, that's $100,000 you keep. For business owners, it's even bigger. New Hampshire's overall tax setup, yeah, it's got business and property taxes, but it stays competitive, especially if you're making good money. So what kind of money does this pull in? Patient money, defensive money, money that buys into homes to live in, not to flip, money that starts businesses slowly and sticks around when times get tough. This isn't just hot money chasing the next boom, it's people protecting what they've got, building wealth the slow way, thinking about the long term, and the money doesn't bolt when things get a little shaky. One of the things you'll see in boom markets is investors flooding in when it's good and flooding out when it turns. New Hampshire doesn't have that problem. The people here aren't betting on fast appreciation. They want stability, they want tax savings, they want a better life. Companies keep relocating and expanding here, supporting commercial real estate across the board, not because New Hampshire's handed them a check, because the math makes sense. Quiet money sticks around, loud money doesn't. That capital base creates a durability that boom markets can't match. And when you layer it on top of everything else we've covered, you'll start to see the full picture, the big misunderstanding. So here's where people get New Hampshire wrong. New Hampshire isn't booming, right? And that's why it dodges boom or bust cycles, why it doesn't get investor whiplash, why it doesn't wind up with overbuilt neighborhoods that tank your value. New Hampshire builds over time instead of spiking. If you want explosive growth, quick flips, crazy appreciation, you're looking in the wrong place. But if you're asking yourself, where is still going to work 10 years from now? New Hampshire checks every single box. Conclusion: forced demand from the region, economic growth concentrated in the South, supply that can't explode, people who stay, money that's patient. These are forces, and they're already moving. New Hampshire isn't built to spike. It's built to still work 10 years from now. If you're looking at towns in New Hampshire and want to know which ones actually match what we've just covered, shoot me an email at adam@thedowgroup.com. I'll walk you through specific areas where these 5 forces hit hardest. And if you want to see what's actually being built and developed across New Hampshire in 2026, check out the video I've linked here about everything new coming to the state this year. I'll show you exactly where this growth is landing on the ground. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.